January 13th, 1983, Supreme Court of the United States. Kuhlmeier versus the Hazelwood School District. The lawyers of this case are Robert P. Bain, Jr. for the petitioners and Leslie D. Edwards defending the respondents. In 1983, the principal at Hazelwood High School had removed articles he deemed inappropriate. These editorials were about teenage pregnancy and divorce. He was asked to make this decision by Howard Emerson, a substitute teacher finishing the year for Robert Sturgis, the regular Journalism II teacher. The students, Kathy Kuhlmeier, Leslie Smart, and Leon Tippett, viewed the deletion of the 2 pages from the paper that included the articles as an unconstitutional breaching of their First Amendment rights, and took this issue to court, suing in 1984. The district court rejected that Hazelwood students' claims, finding the school officials could restrict student speech and activities that are an integral part of the school's educational function, such as a school-sponsored newspaper. The district court also ruled in its 1985 opinion that the principal's actions were justified. In 1986, a 3-judge panel of the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals reversed the district court. The school district appealed the decision to the United States Supreme Court. In a 5-3 decision, the majority of the Supreme Court justices believed that the educators did not offend the First Amendment with editorial control over the content of student speech as long as their actions were reasonably related to legitimate pedagogical concerns. Those dissenting were Justice Brennan, Justice Marshall, and Justice Blackmun. Those in favor were Justice Rehnquist, Justice White, Justice Stevens, and Justice O'Connor, and Justice Scalia.
Hazelwood represents a way for a school to be a monitor for their functions. If a student had the right to say whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted, it is not a very good learning environment to other students. Some kids may feel threatened by other students' opinions, and school is not somewhere that they can opt out if they feel this way. A student feeling threatened cannot learn properly if he feels his ideals are being violated. A pregnant teen being put down by even the school's newspaper knows no ends to the embarrassment. If a newspaper is looked at as a school function, then it looks to this pregnant teen that even the school is against her. This could encourage depression and even dropping out. Controversial topics should remain passive. Although opinions can be stated, it should not dominate the paper. A school official can determine this better than the student through years of insight and actually knowing what will hurt the students. The Supreme Court justices, with their years of experience, know that they could put more trust in the hands of the teachers than that of the students. They know that the students need rights, but that the rights are better protected under the care of the unbiased teacher.
I would absolutely disagree with the Hazelwood decision. The principal stated in his first meeting with the student editors after publication was that he had deleted the articles because they were inappropriate, personal, sensitive, and unsuitable for the newspaper. There was no mention at that point in time of journalistic responsibility. Prior to the incident, the school board's policy via the student statement of policy approved by school authorities each year was that the Spectrum, as a student press publication, accepts all rights implied by the First Amendment. Only speech that materially and substantially interferes with the requirements of appropriate discipline can be found unacceptable and therefore prohibited. It was the policy in 1970 when the article condemning teen pregnancy was published. When the principal deleted the 2 pages of the Spectrum, he breached that agreement. When the Supreme Court decided that student speech could be censored if it interfered with the school's pedagogical concerns, it applied terms just broad enough to take away free speech at the will of the school and for subsequent cases to build further restrictions upon it.
Should we go in the back and make faces?
Alright, I believe the ruling of the Kuhlmeier versus Hazelwood School District case was not correct. I believe it was unconstitutional and did go against the First Amendment. It did had unnecessary censorship of the articles, and I believe the ruling should have went differently.
Something, then what do we stand for? It's very easy to forget the process parties. Is it the nothing to object, so where's the freedom? Your conscience ain't remain on there. Where's the freedom? Where's the freedom? Where's the freedom? Going crazy with paranoia, fear and greed, accepting standards, believing what we hear and read, and then we think we trust out the new reality. But is this freedom just another act from which we feed? Where's the freedom? Where's the freedom?
Since Hazelwood versus Kuhlmeier, educators have been allowed to restrict student expression when, in school-sponsored activities, the reasons for doing so are reasonably related to legitimate pedagogical concerns. The courts also agreed with the school district that the content of the deleted articles, pregnancy and divorce, was not appropriate for an immature audience of high schoolers. The Hazelwood standard has not only been applied to student newspapers, but also to the content of school plays, school assignments, dress code, school election materials, and more on and off campus. With Hazelwood's establishing of a precedent that school officials can censor materials that come into conflict with district policies or school curriculum, the interpretations of later courts have now nearly reversed their decision in Tinker versus Des Moines, which stated that students do not leave their First Amendment rights at the schoolhouse gates. Today, this has bred a generation of students that enter the world as citizens afraid to use their freedom of speech rights and unaware of how to use them appropriately. Several students have found themselves in the courtroom since Hazelwood. However, their claims to free speech often were more akin to profanity or violent speech.